You know that feeling where you decide that you are going to go toe-to-toe with somebody, no matter what it takes. You are going to stick to your guns, and you say your piece, and you prepare for the inevitable backlash. And instead of arguing with you, the other person goes, "You're right." And then you kind of have the rug pulled right out from underneath you. That's kind of how I feel today, because this is the Diatone Roma F5 V1, and I reviewed this some months ago, and I liked it a lot, but there were like 3 things about it that I was like, geez, Diatone, if you would just change these things, like this would be hands down the best quad you could get for the money on the market today. And you know what? They kind of did. I'm Joshua Bardwell. You're going to learn something today. The Diatone Roma V2 that I'm reviewing in this video was sent to me by Diatone for this review. I did not purchase it with my own money. I have not received any cash or other compensation in exchange for this video, and no one has had any approval or control or preconditions on the contents of this video before it was released. This is the very Diatone Roma F5 V1 that I reviewed some months ago. And I point that out to you because I want you to look at it. Has this been sitting on a shelf? And a lot of times a reviewer will review a product, maybe they'll use it for a couple weeks, then they'll review it, then they'll set it aside and they'll never look at it again. And I want you to see that that has not been the case for this quadcopter. In fact, I recently did a training event and I needed some analog quads because the people that I was working with were on analog, and I grabbed this off the shelf and I flew this quad for 2 whole weeks, and yeah, it's still here. And I point that out because one of the complaints about the Diatone Roma V1 that has been addressed in the V2 is the durability. And I just want you guys to know that when I say the durability of the V1 was okay for me, like you'll hear stories from people and they'll say, oh, I crashed it into a grassy field at 2 miles an hour and from 10 feet off the ground and the freaking arm broke. Those stories are out there and there's too many of them to just dismiss them. But for me, at least, this has been more than acceptable, which means that the improvements that they made for the V2 should make it even better. Let's take a closer look. Now, I've just removed the V2 here from the box and I've left it in its complete sort of factory trim because I want you to see how much effort Diatone has gone to make this more accessible for beginners. For example, there's markers. They've taken a lesson from DJI. They've put markers on the motors to tell you which direction the props should go. It's spinning props in. Some people will find that to be a controversial choice, but so be it. You are a beginner and you want to know more about props in versus props out and how to install props. I've got a video, Props for Noobs, and it's all the things that everybody assumes you already know. Link down in the video description if you want to check that out when you're done with this one. There is a pre-wired receiver plug here. This is the plug-and-play version, which means it doesn't come with a receiver, but Diatone makes this as easy as it can be. We've got a wiring guide here, and it shows the wiring for the pre-soldered plug, and it comes with a ready-to-go plug for a FrSky RXSR. So if you are using a FrSky RXSR, you just plug in that plug and you're good to go, no soldering. On the other hand, if you have any other receiver, it comes with this plug, which can plug into here and solder up, although at that point you kind of might as well just solder it directly to the flight controller. That's up to you. Here on the XT60, Diatone lets you know whether this is a 4S or a 6S quad. Of course, us pros know you can just look at the motor KV, but for someone who's just starting out, that's not so obvious. And a reminder to connect the video transmitter antenna before you plug in the LiPo, or you can burn out the video transmitter. V1 of the Diatone Roma F5 really impressed me. It's lightweight. Not ultra lightweight for a 5-inch freestyle quad, but reasonably lightweight, and that, combined with the 2207.5 motors and Diatone's pretty good factory PID tune, meant that it flew really well. So how does the V2 stack up? Well, the V1 comes in at 340 grams. That's obviously without props and without the side plates. So I'll just pull the side plates off the V1 here, and it comes in at 370 grams. So it's 30 grams heavier, more give or take. Where's that weight coming from? The V2 has 2306.5 motors instead of the 2207.5 of the V1. And those are pretty similar in size and weight most of the time, although I haven't weighed them individually. So I don't think that's making up the difference. The V2 has got a GPS on it, and that is adding a little bit of weight. The GPS unit itself weighs a few grams, and of course, we've got this great big honkin' 3D print, and that plastic adds a little bit of weight as well. The VTX on the V2 has been upgraded from 400 milliwatts to 1 watt. And that was one of my biggest complaints. The V1 was so good, but a 400 milliwatt video transmitter, in my opinion, is just not enough for the kind of things that freestyle pilots usually want to do. We need penetration through buildings and obstacles and so forth, and 1 watt is a great place to be. But you can see here, it's got a much bigger heat sink, and that's adding a fair amount of weight. The thickness of the arms on the V2 hasn't changed, but you can see here that the taper, the profile, has changed to add a little bit more thickness up here. One of the biggest complaints about the V1 was that the arms just broke way too easily here. On the V1, we've got this straight line to a relatively thin point here, whereas on the V2, the arm is thicker overall and is a little bit tapered and expands outward with a curve, and that has significantly increased the durability, although by adding a little bit more weight. Finally, you can see on the V1 that the front end was held in with M2 hardware, whereas on the V2 it's got M3 hardware. That's added a little bit of carbon here to accommodate the larger screw holes. The hardware itself is heavier, and it's not obvious from a visual inspection, but this front end is now titanium steel alloy instead of 7075 aluminum, and that's gonna, is that gonna add weight? Well, I'm not gonna take it apart just to weigh the individual pieces, but, because that sounds like a pain in the butt, but I don't know, maybe titanium's lighter than aluminum. It really depends. Anyway, it's about 30 grams heavier. Well, the only thing to do then is to see if the V2 flies as good as the V1. It's 30 grams heavier, it's got a little bit different motors. We're gonna give it a rip. Oh, by the way, I've also put an Express LRS receiver on here, and it's the half-gram tiny micro Express LRS receiver with a little ceramic antenna. I'm gonna be doing a range test of that, so definitely get subscribed and hit the notification bell if you don't wanna miss it. Yeah. Huh, let's do a punch out. Yeah, it doesn't punch out like a 700 gram, but it's not bad. Didn't hear any prop wash there. It definitely doesn't corner like a 600 gram quad, but then why would it? It's not a 600 gram quad. I've been taking lessons from Stingy. Power loop-tastic. Power loop the world. Pretty smooth. Ooh, boy, yeah. I like it. How about the VTX? That 1 watt VTX feeling pretty good? We can put it on the power meter and measure it, but just, you know, my gut check, seat of the pants impression from flying it is that that 1 watt is pretty legit. A little break up there, but I'm not facing that direction. Whoa, hello. There is a little prop wash finally. Whee! 3.5 volts. Come on, come on, come on. Yes. 3.5 volts. That was kind of cool. Let's quit while I'm ahead. Hey there folks, Joshua from the future here. Before we take the claims about the output power of this video transmitter too seriously, let's just stick this Immersion RC RF power meter on here and see if it actually makes the rated output power. And we got to take this with a grain of salt because this is not lab grade equipment, but let's just see if it's like in the ballpark. And the first thing I noticed when I plugged this in is that it is only outputting 3 milliwatts. And the reason for that is that it's in pit mode. In fact, if we look at the user's manual, really great that Diatone includes like user's manuals for all their stuff. Cool. I mean, a lot of people don't do that these days. It says that the video transmitter will default to 3 milliwatts when it's in pit mode. But I can't figure out why it's in pit mode, because like, oh, hey, we're using another cool feature here, which is that this flight controller has Wi-Fi. So you can actually connect to it with Wi-Fi with your phone and use the RunCam SpeedyBee app to configure it without ever plugging in. That's pretty slick. So it says that pit mode is 3 milliwatts, but I can't figure out why it's in pit mode. I don't have any attenuation in here, and the frequency is about right for race 8. Well, I don't know if you are going to be able to see this on camera, but we do have a little bit of a kink there in the pigtail. Could that be it? Let's try it with a different pigtail and see if the pigtail is what's causing it. And we'll know pretty quickly because it's set to 800 milliwatts. So now it's reading 4 microwatts. See the micro there, don't let that fool you. Ah, yep, there's 700 milliwatts right there. Yeah, so the pigtail was messed up. That may have gotten done. This is Joshua from the future. I've crashed the crap out of this. Durability testing coming in a little later in the video. Yeah, so I've crashed the crap out of it, and that's probably when the pigtail got messed up, but there you go. So the video transmitter seems to be in the ballpark of legit, but that pigtail, the way they've got it mounted, and this 3D printed holder, let it get a little messed up. Well, that was all pretty fun. I think it flies pretty good. Not quite the same lightweight flickability as the original, I think, but certainly perfectly good for a typical sort of 5-inch mini quad. The big question, though, is how much did Diatone improve the durability compared to the V1? And I think I know the perfect way to test that. Ghost Branch FPV, one of my patrons in my Discord, is always challenging me to trippy spin around this tree. And I am bad at trippy spins. So let's try it and crash a lot and see if the durability has improved. This is going to be very hard to trippy spin around. Like, this is a hell of a thing. Well, flight controller rebooted. Was that a trippy spin? Oh. GoPro, where did you go? So how did it hold up to that durability testing? Well, it didn't break. But then again, I've been flying the V1 for a while, which some people said was, oh, it's just so weak. I can't believe anyone would fly it. And it also didn't break. So the fact that I didn't break it may not say much. But I've been keeping my ear to the ground in the Diatone Facebook group and other places around the internet. And I think there is a general consensus that the Diatone Roma F5 V2 has largely fixed its durability issue. Obviously, anything will break if you hit it hard enough, but no longer are people saying, oh, I just crashed into a bag of pillows and the arm snapped at the tiniest breath of wind. In fact, some people are even saying, holy cow, I beat the crap out of it and it held in there. So the frame is durable, but all is not perfect. Where's the GPS unit? I don't know. It's gone. And the 3D print that we've got here seems like it could use a little bit of improvement. We can see that it's tearing away here at a layer line that may contribute to why the GPS is gone. And so could be better there. Our VTX antenna is also sort of breaking out, although I don't know. I can't tell if it's still in one piece, but yeah, it's that rear 3D print seemed to do a lot better on the V1. It seems to be a lot more durable on the V1 and hold up a lot better. I'm not sure why. So the durability is greatly improved, and the flight characteristics, well, the quad is 30 grams heavier. And with the V1, one of the things I pointed out was that it had a little more of a lightweight, nimble characteristic to the way that it flies compared to something like the iFlight Nazgul V2, which was just a little bit heavier, and they just had its own character, if you will. With the additional 30 grams of weight on the Diatone V2, it loses some of that character and flies more like a typical, it's not heavy, but flies more like a typical 5-inch freestyle quad, all of which is to say it's not bad. We've just traded a little bit of weight for a little bit of durability, and that seems to be a trade-off that people are pretty happy to make, given how vocally people complain about the V1. So how does it fly? You saw it fly, and I've got no complaints, but it is worth pointing out that Diatone made some really weird choices in their PID tune for this guy. For example, bidirectional D-shot, they're not using it. And yes, the ESC does support it. I tested it. Why wouldn't you use bidirectional D-shot? Because it just objectively makes most quads fly better. And if you look at the filter settings, they've turned the D-term slider down to 0.8. And my personal philosophy is anytime you see a quad with the filter slider turned down from 1.0, then something's wrong. Like, why would you, if there was not a problem with frame resonance or some other gyro problem you were trying to solve, why would you turn it down? Why wouldn't you be turning it up to make the quad fly better? The thing is, people have this frame, and this frame doesn't have any major resonance issues. So I can't understand why Diatone turned the D-term filter down to 0.8. Again, objectively making the quad fly worse. And if you did have filtering problems you were trying to solve, why wouldn't you use bidirectional D-shot and RPM filtering, which is a very, very effective way of solving those problems. In addition, the PIDs that Diatone is using are really freaking weird. The P and the D gains are fairly low, which I guess you could explain as this is a bind and fly quad for the masses, so you don't want to sort of tune it to the edge and then have it fly away or smoke motors if people fly it with maybe a bent prop. But the I gains, on pitch, the I gain is much lower than on roll and yaw, and normally that would have something to do with the weight distribution, but this is a pure X layout. The weight distribution should be pretty much the same. I guess the battery is longer than wider, but it's really weird that they have I gain so low on pitch. And anyway, flies fine. It could probably be tuned a lot better. And it's not a deal breaker for me, but it is pretty weird. The other thing that we've got to talk about then is the price. And we're at a really weird time right now in our hobby because this quad sells for $270, and the iFlight Nazgul V2, which I think is its major competitor, if you find it in stock right now, it sells for about $210. That's without a receiver for both of them, so add in the price of a receiver, but that's apples to apples. $210 for the Nazgul V2 it's so much cheaper than this. Why is it so much cheaper? They're very comparable. The Nazgul has an F4 processor. This has an F7. That's about it. That's the only place the Nazgul, it's got probably better motors because iFlight makes good motors. The Nazgul doesn't have a GPS. The Nazgul has a 1-watt VTX, the same as this. They're very comparable. The reason that the Nazgul is so much cheaper is that in the last 6 months or a year, every electronic component has gone up in price by between 2 and 5 times. The exact number varies, but they've gone up a lot. And the Nazgul hasn't been hit by that yet because they're still selling out the last batch of Nazguls that iFlight made at that lower price point. Whereas this Diatone is eating that higher price, and that's why it's so much more expensive. So if you can buy a Nazgul V2 for $210 right now, go do it. You are not going to see a deal that good again until the price of electronics come back down. And this $279 price, or $270 price for the Diatone Roma F5 V2 should actually be compared to the new iFlight Ethos, I think they're calling it, which is the new version of the Nazgul. The Ethos costs $300, and that is more or less apples to apples with this. So, $279 for the Diatone Roma F5 V2 is going to hurt if you still have your head in 2020 pricing. But actually, it's a pretty good deal compared to stuff that's coming out now in 2021. And I hope to God that if you're watching this in 2022 or 2023, that things are better. We used to be able to buy really good 5-inch biden flies for like $200. They were such good times. So, final word. Diatone fixed basically everything that I complained about on the V1 here with the V2. Improved durability, great video transmitter, great flight controller, the flight controller was always great, good ESC. Motors, there have been some durability complaints about the motors, but they've beefed them up a little. Motors pretty good. Don't know what's going on with this GPS and this 3D print in the back. I probably would replace that with a more durable 3D print but the day I got this quad. But other than that, it seems like a pretty good deal at a pretty good price. If you're looking for a 5-inch bind and fly in the world of 2021, there's links down in the video description. And they are affiliate links. And in case you're new here, that means when you click that link and then make any purchase at the affiliated store, I get a small commission. It's an easy way for you to support the channel. Just click the link, fill up your cart. Anything you buy, I get a cut from, not just this one product. Click the link, fill up your cart, check out. I get a little commission. It's an easy way for you to support me. It doesn't cost you anything. Thanks so much for watching. Happy flying.
You guys, I don't know where I am, and I don't know what's going to happen, but if I don't make it out of this, I just want to know that you subscribe to my channel, or maybe join my Patreon, or click one of these videos I picked out for you.